Horizon Home Sushi Reaction. This is Why is Antarctica Divided? Short 1 minute documentary by the channel History Matters. Yeah, as far as I know, Antarctica is, I guess now, recently some natural gas, somewhat oil, and some other minerals were found there that makes it more important. And I guess the ice water, basically water, because water is going to be an issue in the future. Right, so I guess this is why people's interests have grown since then. Right, all the country that it claims different part of it. There is also a part that's not being claimed. But why is it divided? Yeah, that is a good point, right? Because first guy, Spanish, British, I don't know who the first guy who probably went there, he probably claimed it or something. And what? I guess he forgot or something. Other people claimed it, and now it's a conflict. You rarely see, a place like that get divided that much, right? I mean, it's mostly empty, so you would think like, okay, somebody probably just claimed it. But yeah, it's way too many country claims it rather than 1, 2. It's like what, 4 or 5 or something. I guess Argentina has claimed, right? But I think that's I guess after the war between Argentina and Britain. I guess after that they kind of went there to claim it, if I remember correctly, right? Obviously Russia, USA, other, Britain, all these people claim it, I guess. But yeah, it's gonna be fun seeing this. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. So I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the next Sunday. There's a link in the description. And yeah, that's what it is.
Colonial powers divvying up continents, it's almost always in reference to Africa or the Americas. And whilst these are the continents that we often think of, Antarctica was, and also still is, divided. The continent is split like this, with these countries all claiming a chunk of it for their own.
Ooh, okay. That is interesting. Wait a minute, USA doesn't have a claim?
And with this last bit having no official claimants. But how did this come to pass? Why is Antarctica still divided? Why by these countries in particular? And why is some of it still unclaimed? So, going back, the first person to discover Antarctica is controversial. In 1819, William Smith discovered these islands just off the coast of the continent. But it was the next year when Russian explorer Fabian Bellinghausen was the first to see the actual continental landmass. After it had become clear that there was a lot of land just sitting there without European flags, nations became very interested in it.
Well, it's not much of controversy if the guy only discovered this small bit here. I mean, come on, you have to discover the main land if you want to claim it, like I found it, I don't know. So it goes to Russia, I guess, I don't know.
So by the 1930s, Antarctica had been thoroughly explored, with the Norwegians being the first to reach the South Pole in 1911, by which time the British had laid claim to this part of Antarctica because they wanted to tax the whaling there. And after this, there was a sort of scramble for Antarctica, and by 1939 the French had laid claim to this, the Norwegians this, and Germany this, with Britain and its dominions having most of the rest. As you'll know, 1939 also brought World War II. Which as a result meant that these nations were much less interested in Antarctica and more interested in not dying. And during the war, Argentina and Chile asserted their own territorial demands in the region which overlapped with Britain's.
Oh, okay, so it was after World War II, not after their war. Patagonia War, whatever that was, right? Yeah. So, this was after World War II, the Argentina and Chile claim. I guess it makes sense because during that time, Europe was so sucked out resource-wise and every-wise that, let's be honest, most of their major colonies, basically got independence, right? When World War II ended, India got its independence, and lots of other places as well. They had to let go some places because they couldn't keep it because all the resources went dry. Only USA was in unique position after World War II, because in World War I and most of the World War II, USA was not part of Europe, a different continent. They supplied with war weapons, resources, and things like that, made good business. So after World Wars, USA become really big powerhouse, while Europe, which was already somewhat a powerhouse, most major powers, went down. So I guess now we're gonna learn how US is gonna claim some of it too, because I'm pretty sure US has some claim, right?
Which meant that it looked like conflict was brewing. After the war, the United States started to eye the continent and made large-scale expeditions which worried the rest of the claimants. The Americans began these exercises to help them if they wanted any land for themselves, and also it acted as practice. For what? Antarctic conditions were similar to Arctic ones, and if the US ever went to war with the Soviet Union, it was believed that places like Greenland would be fought over. The addition of one of the world's superpowers meant that the rest
Wait a minute, what? You have Alaska, man. Why do you need Antarctica? Like, just do your drill in Alaska if that's what you want. Pretty sure, yeah, USA had Alaska at this point, right? So I guess that was just like, oh, they need an answer. I guess give them this one. I guess this would be good enough, right? You could put that in a headline in the paper, and I guess we're absolved. Nobody's gonna blame us after this, but we definitely need Antarctica. This is so good, man.
The claimants got a bit nervous, and so there was a concerted effort to negotiate a treaty. This wasn't just to stop the United States from grabbing it all, but to prevent the USSR and Japan from making their own claims. So the international treaty, the Antarctic Treaty, was signed by these nations in 1959, and it did several things. First of all, it banned any new claimants on the continent, with the exception of the USA and the USSR, who could do so in the future if they wished. Importantly, it didn't recognise any nation's claims, it just kicked the can down the road. Second, the treaty demilitarised the continent, banning military bases and nuclear testing there. And third, the treaty made
I saw that China is not part of that treaty. I fear future conflicts over that. I didn't sign no treaty. What? And there is no treaty hardlining anything, right? So yeah, this is mine. This person is mine. Here's my base there.
Antarctica a scientific haven, whereby research would be the primary interaction that the rest of the world had there. And what this did was put a stop to any further claims, which is why Antarctica is divided up like this, but in practice, not so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching, with a special thanks to my...
Alright, it says, welcome to Antarctica. No, you don't own it. I'm imagining Xi Jinping or somebody from China just going there and with a Sharpie writing, says who. I didn't sign no treaty. What you talking about? Alright. I think that could happen if Antarctica suddenly becomes a place of interest. Because before it was like, these are the major powers. If somebody else outside of this power even does it, they'll be afraid of these powers from retaliation. But China is big enough with military-wise and every-wise. They know that even with retaliation, what are they going to do? Go out full-on war with China, right? China might not win it against all the powers, but yeah, China's going to put a good enough fight. So that's just enough deterrent. So people will come to the table rather than declaring war. So China could try something like that. I don't know. Water would become an issue in the future, but I think we are finding more and more that Antarctica has good resources way below, right? We didn't know that before a century or so ago, but now we are learning that. But yeah, and especially that one, Greenland. Why Greenland? I mean, look, Fallout, Bethesda's Fallout has really good lore and sometimes realistic lore. Fallout 3 has DLC called Anchorage in Alaska, where China fights. It kind of makes sense when you see the globe and see the Alaska's point, right? It's really good point if Asia versus America ever happens, right? Any part of it, like China or even somewhat of Russia actually fights, they'll go through Alaska in a way, because it's a sneaky plan of doing so. That Chinese balloon, right? Recently, I think that also went through that Alaska, right? Somewhere like that, right? I'm pretty sure it didn't come through, I think it went from east. I don't know much detail about that, but yeah, I think Alaska and Anchorage would be the kind of key point. And some of the real life lore video also saw that, shows that how critical point Alaska can be. Alaska Anchorage can be, right? It's kind of in a center if you see other powers in a range. So you could put something there, bases there or whatever. So why would they fight over Greenland? I think the fight would happen in Alaska or something. But it's like we need Arctic-like conditions, so we're going to have an Antarctic. You have Alaska. What you talking about? Alright, well, that was Why is Antarctica Divided by the channel History Matters. If you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.